Thanks very much, Stavro. And thanks for joining. How many of you are Java programmers? Okay, wow. No, we're all terrible Java programmers. That wasn't the question. Otherwise, no one put up their hand if they're good. So, yes, last year was an interesting year. I started the year in panic mode because at the beginning of the year, normally companies are very quiet. They're not really investing. And then I started doing a whole bunch of things and got extremely busy doing things and taking on all sorts of work that I shouldn't have taken on and got completely exhausted. So by the end of last year, I decided to just chill out a bit, take a break, take a holiday. Normally I take holiday sort of July, August, but this year I was even traveling for work in July and August. It was last year. It was horrible. So I started relaxing a bit and I started solving Project Euler puzzles. How many of you know what that is? Okay, a few hands coming up. It's a little website. They give you maths puzzles. It starts off fairly easy, like work out a square root of something, something simple, and then they get more and more difficult as you go along. So I've started tinkering with that, and right now I'm number 25 in Greece, right? I'm the second highest in the Java language, but the number one stopped playing a long time ago, so eventually I'll catch up to them. And it's really fun to do. The only problem is, it's good thinking practice. I don't know if it's actually good coding practice because normally by the time I solve the puzzle, I'm so sick of it, I don't go and fix my code to make it look better. So I'm not going to show you the code I write for Project Euler. It's just, I just want to get it to work and get the solution and then move to the next puzzle. The problem is that very often I'll be like in bed, trying to fall asleep, and then I will think, wait, I've got a better idea for this one algorithm. And I'll spend a lot of time thinking about this. And often I didn't sleep like hard at all at night because my mind is thinking about all these different algorithms. And I wake up and, I've got to take the kids to school. It was still at that time. And my wife says, and my wife's sitting over there, she says to me, aren't you taking the kids to school? I said, yes, but I have to try this out. I have to try this out, right? And then I try it out and it works. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing, So it's like being on cocaine. I believe I've never been on cocaine, but I can imagine it being like that. Like it's such a buzz that you have to solve this thing that I had to stop. I had to actually say, no, I actually have to stop this now because my mind is racing too much. I actually don't have the capacity. I can't stop it. And I'm all night thinking about better algorithms, so I stopped. And I thought, well, what can I do next? Because I really wanted to do something fun. And so here's Mr Manolis, Emmanouil Koutrakis. He is the second oldest man in our village, Chorafakia. He's now 91 years old. He's a legend. I mean, he's the lead psaltis in our church, and he stands there for 3 hours doing the church service, and he does that almost every Sunday. And he spent about 20 years writing a history book about the village and the area. Now, the history of our area is not that interesting, I must be honest, because unless you live there, you're going to go, okay, I mean, there's some really funny stories where, I might tell you one or two as we go through, but it's really funny stories in there, but it's interesting for those who live there. And so very limited application, and he printed lots of these books. He's got lots of them lying around at home still. And I remember speaking to him a couple of weeks ago, and my synteknos, the godfather of our daughter, his grandfather used to teach Byzantine music. And so I said to Mr Manolis, do you know Nikolaos Daskalakis? And he said, yes, that was my teacher when I was a child, And then he started telling me all the history about Nikolaos Daskalakis and where he worked before and where he worked after and so on. And I met this wonderful man when we first came to Greece. So we've been in Greece for 18 years. And when we first came to Greece, we were pretty isolated from Greece, from the Greek community. And my father-in-law came to visit and he said to me, Heinz, you are making a big mistake. And I said, well, what am I doing wrong? He said to me, you need to go to the Greek church occasionally. once every 3 months, you go to the Greek Orthodox Church and you just get into the community. And so one day I listened to him and I went, and I met Mr Manolis' brother, Mr Kostas. And Mr Kostas he recognized me because I don't know anybody. And he has a vineyard across the valley from us. So we've got a house and there's a little valley between, and there's got this vineyard across. And he's, hello, I'm your neighbor, of course in Greek. And my Greek is very, very bad. It still is very bad. But he recognized me, and then he introduced me to his brother. And what's interesting about him is he's a very formal person. He didn't say, my name is Manolis. He said, my name is Koutrakis. And I was like, that's a strange Greek, that's a strange name. I've never heard that name before. Of course, I didn't know that in that village, everyone is connected, right? There are like 3-4 families that are running through the village. And, you need to know this person is that group. Whereas Manolis is every second person. You can't really judge or know where the person fits in. So he was very formal and very very nice person, but very formal. But as I got to know him, he had a really great sense of humor, which you don't really know if you meet him for the first time. Anyway, so one day he said to me, his wife said to him, his wife Katina said, you must tell him about the Kazani. And I don't know what the Kazani is. So he said, Charalambe, come to my Kazani. Charalambe is my Greek name. Come to my Kazani. And I said, well, I don't know what that is. So I went there, and they were distilling tsikodia. Who knows what tsikodia is? Okay, everybody knows what tsikodia is. That's what we use for medicine in Crete. Okay, and it's really is part of the fabric of society. I remember. If I go to the beach, my friends there will say, okay, you've come out of the water, let's have some tsikodia. It's like always the whole time. And I say to them, I have to work. And the one time I was running through the village, I passed by an elderly friend of mine, he was quite old, Mr Ioannina, and he said to me, come sit down, we're going to have a tsikodia. And I said to him, look, I'm really sorry, but I'm busy running. I can't drink tsikodia and then carry on running. It's like 40%, well, at least 40% alcohol, right? And he said, I said, look, I'll do it another day. And a week later, unfortunately, I went to his funeral. So that taught me, if somebody invites for tsikodia, you say yes. That's basically how it works. But these guys, that's his sons, there's his sons. These photos were done by a friend of mine from the beach. He's a really fantastic photographer. They make hundreds of liters of really good tsikodia, and it always tastes better straight from the cauldron. And there's another picture of Yannis. He was an actor as well. You might have seen him on TV. There was a Cretan show that they had recently. And so eventually, Mr. Manolis asked me, do you know anybody who can type something into a computer? And I was like, well, yeah, I can type, right? And he had written a book by hand over 20 years on the village and the area. And a beautiful, flowery language, but it wasn't even Greek, it was Cretan. And it wasn't Cretan, it was Western Cretan from Chorafakia, right? So he asked me, and I don't know anybody, but he found somebody eventually, and he printed this book. It's about, it's just many, many pages, 500 photographs. And when I heard that he printed it, I went and bought it. And I got him to sign it for me, and there he is, reading his book, sitting and enjoying the day. But I couldn't read it. So I asked him, do you mind if I try and translate this to English? And so my idea was, you can simply take the book, copy-paste it into Google Translate, and you know what it says. And he very kindly agreed, but he said he doesn't want to pay any more money for the book. He's spent enough money, he doesn't want any more expenses. So my first attempt was to simply take the book, and he gave me the PDF of the book, and I sort of copied and pasted it into WordPress. Because if you don't know which direction to go, just try different things until something works, right? So if you look at chorafakia.com, you'll see the beginning of that. Now, that's not the entire book. That's only for the first few, maybe the first 20 pages on that website. And then I found a plugin that automatically translates each page to whatever language you want. And it connected to Google Translate, and yes, Google Translate is terrible. And then, but what they did is they stored the translation in a database so that you could edit it later and improve it over time. At some point, I wanted to upgrade the plugin, and it lost all the translations. So I thought, this is definitely not the way to do it. This must be a better way. And the other problem is that they had footnotes of the Cretan words, because Cretan has a lot of words which are different, which geeks often don't understand. And so I tried to convert the PDF to LibreOffice. That also was an idea. But it worked okay, but the problem is I'm a software guy. So I want to divide and conquer. I want to have each little section as a separate file, which I can include and then build up my book like that. I've written a book before about proxies, and that's how I did it. And my thesis was also copy and paste, not copy and paste, but rather including part. The other problem with LibreOffice is that you could do it that way, but then you have to copy and paste each paragraph into ChatGPT or Google Translate and copy it back again. It's just not practical to translate a book like that. So my next step was AsciiDoc. Now AsciiDoc, I think it's actually Ruby-based, the whole mechanism, but it's a text-based markup format for writing documents and books. I wrote a book with that already. And this way I could then break up the whole book into individual chunks. Now I've got 777 individual files, AsciiDoc files, and I could put everything onto GitHub, which is also great, and produce PDF, EPUB, and HTML. Just for the picture, I need just take a picture of this with me, a picture of this, and one like this. Brilliant, thank you. I want to show it to my friends. All right, so, and then from that, first of all, I could store everything in HTML, in GitHub, which is great, and I could produce PDF, EPUB, HTML5, whatever I want, from the AsciiDoc. The book has hundreds of photos from bygone eras. We did think of retaking all the pictures with my professional friend, photographer, but a lot of the photos simply don't exist anymore, or the places don't exist anymore, because it's a history book. So here, for example, you'll see a picture of the beach of Kalathas, where I run every morning, and it says, Emirali paralia tu Kalatha keto grafiko nisaiki. And so if you translate that, you'll see the large beach of Kalathas and the picturesque islet. Don't know how to pronounce that. And there's a number. Now the number roughly was the same as the file number of the pictures, but not exactly. So sometimes they were different. So it took me many days to sort that out. Really, with hundreds of pictures, you can imagine. Anyway, the original book was good for printing, but because it was good for printing because it was cheaper to print. They had all the text first, and then they had the photographs in color afterwards. Because printing everything in color would be prohibitively expensive. But the problem is that it's difficult to read because you don't have the pictures together with the text. So what I thought is I'm going to make a PDF of the original book, but with the pictures inlined, so that it's much nicer to read. Also, the Cretan words were quite tricky because they've got a star next to them, so you know it's a Cretan word. Not always. I mean, you would know if it's Cretan, but I don't know because I don't know even Greek, so how would I know? I wouldn't know what is not Greek. But then the lexicon at the back wasn't sorted. So they had like ABC, Alpha, Beta, Gamma, but within each letter they didn't have it sorted. So this was really complicated to do. All right, so I thought, well, let me really sort this. Let me do this as a software project. So as I said, hundreds of small chunks. Each chunk was in text format. So you could more easily simply take it, copy and paste it into some translation format. But my experience with Google Translate wasn't that great. I'm sure you've all tried it. You probably all agree Google Translate just doesn't cut it. And you can sort of understand what is meant, but it doesn't produce prose, which is really nice and readable. And I'd heard about ChatGPT 4 that it was better than 3.5, and so I signed up for it, and it really is, in my opinion, much better, I think. So here's a little poem. and this is the original. I think it's Greek. I don't think it's Cretan. This was a quote that he had from somebody else who'd written the poem. And so if you look at that, and then you look at the Google Translate, this is what the Google Translate, and it's sort of, if you look, for example, I don't know, it just doesn't look like poetry. It looks like a very direct translation, but it's not very good. And then ChatGPT 3.5, for example, with your trunk rosy and heavily wounded, this was with a rosy torso and thousands of wounds. It's like, okay, I think it's better, but here's ChatGPT 4. Now, it says, with your reddened trunk and scarred 1,000 times. I find that far more powerful than what was before. So I thought, okay, this is definitely better in terms of translation than what I saw before. Okay, so what I would do is I basically gave the following prompt to ChatGPT. Translate into English, keeping AsciiDoc tags intact. Because I noticed that most of the time, it would translate them as well. So images became, something else, Pix or Bilder if it's German or something. So I said, keep the AsciiDoc tags intact, and most of the time, it actually did a good job. So you'd end up with this, This one's not exactly correct, because the area we live in is actually called Livadi, right? So, and it says, fotografia tu Livadiu, it's the area, it's the picture of Livadi, but it's not capitalized. So, but that means meadows, So it's sort of, it could be, probably should be the name there, not the proper name, not the meadow. But anyway, it's okay. Now, IntelliJ actually has a AI integration built in. So let me show you how that works, because I thought that was quite interesting. So if I take that file, which is, no, I've got the wrong project. It was open. There it is, okay. If I take that file, which was the image 049, and I go to the Greek image 049, this is PhotoBlock's image 049, see hundreds of different files over here. And I wrote an AI action that says translate to English. And all this does is it prepends that with translate into English, keeping the AsciiDoc tags intact. So I did that, and it does pretty much that. If I capitalize that, I don't know what will happen. Oh wait, that's read-only. So let me go back and capitalize that. I don't know if it'll actually fix it, do it better or not. Let's try it again. Oh no, no, don't do that. That's not done. Alt-Enter, translate. No, what am I doing here? No, doing the wrong thing. Let's try it again. Close that. Alt-Enter, and translate to English. You could probably have like oh, there you go, that's better. A panoramic photo of Livadi as it is in current time. So now I've got it great, because I wouldn't say it was necessarily a mistake in the original, but it was, because it should have been capitalized, and then it would have known that this is a name of an area, and then it would have done a translation correctly. So, of course, this is something which is too much for me to figure out, because, I mean, my Greek is really, really bad. It's horrible, terrible. So what about this whole thing of generative AI? Now, we've all heard about it, but there are some concerns, of course, because it might give you copyrighted material. It might leak some of your sensitive business information into its own models, maybe your passwords, your API keys, etc. And it might also make all of us unemployed. Now that's, of course, the biggest problem, right? I think that's the biggest problem. Anyway, if you look at this trueup.io/layoffs, you'll see that things are not looking good in the tech sector at the moment. It's quite brutal out there. It's like, I think January was like 45,000 new tech jobs got killed, or tech jobs, people got unemployed. So it's pretty bad at the moment. But other jobs are also going to be affected by AI. For example, models. my syntechnos sent me a picture of an AI-generated model for some jewelry that his daughter is selling. And I think, because I knew that this was AI-generated, that I know that that was AI-generated. So I say, well, I can tell that's AI-generated. But then I looked at the other pictures on her website, and I actually wasn't sure. So, they're becoming really good. So instead of hiring expensive models, you just say, okay, here, AI, generate these models for me. And boom, 10 minutes later, you've got all your jewelry catalog done. Wow. Authors. They're big companies firing all their authors, all their news reporters. Translators. Now, the translation we're going to do is not as good as it could be by a professional. But it's really good. I mean, I can really understand what's going on in 99.9% of the cases. Artists, musicians in Germany, they're even doing sex workers now with AI. Don't ask me how that works, but anyway. Apparently, that's what they do. Hairdressers are probably still okay, but who knows what will happen in the future. So it affects everybody, this whole thing. Oh, by the way, I've got a little gift for those of you who are here. This is going to expire soon. It's not Tikudia, sorry, I can't ship that in any way. But this is a course on data structures that I wrote. So if you grab that voucher, just make sure to enable emails, otherwise you won't get any updates and stuff like that. But if you grab that, you'll have access to it, a lifetime access. So that's just something from me, if you want that. It's on data structures on Java. It really goes into a lot of detail. And what's nice about it is it has like a quiz that you can try and answer to see how well you understand data structures. And let me say that quiz is not easy. So if you fail it, don't be too harsh on yourself. All right. So obviously, if you want to bulk translate everything, if you want to translate one picture at a time, one section at a time, it'll take a long time. So what I did, I batched all 50 photographs, or 50 photographs at a time into a file. I said, translate all these photographs into, or all the descriptions of the photographs into English, and then it did that. Now, there was a lot less latency for the translation requests, but it kept on falling over, and I wasn't quite sure why. You see, the reason that I've discovered afterwards is that ChatGPT has a limitation on how many tokens you can send it in one request. Now, apparently, the new Google AI allows you to send like 1 million tokens at a time. So that's massive. That's a very, very large thing, but I haven't tried that out yet. So I did this copying and pasting for a while, but if you do something often enough, eventually you really want to automate it. And I was sitting at the beach with my laptop with Kalathas, and I was thinking, maybe I can do this with ChatGPT API. And I didn't know how to do it. So I went to ChatGPT and I said to it, show me how to use your API. And it went, and it showed me, this is how you do it this is how you use Apache HTTP client to send requests to the ChatGPT API. Okay, I actually don't want to use Apache. I want to use a Java 11 HTTP client. And so I simply said, show me using the Java 11 HTTP client. And a minute later, I had the example that worked with Java 11 HTTP client. It just did it for me. I said, this is how you do it. And it looks like this. Basically, you've got your API URL that you're going to send your prompt to. You're going to have an API key, which you need to get from OpenAI. And then there's a prompt, tell me a joke. Now, don't do that, okay? That's a really bad idea. The jokes are terrible. They're absolutely awful. All right, so, and then you have an HTTP client. You say, make new HTTP client. We make a new builder. We set up the URI. And this is all generated. I didn't write that code. This is all from ChatGPT. Authorization, bearer is API key. Header, content type, application, JSON. Post, here's the JSON message using GPT 3.5 Turbo. There are different models you can use. The messages, the content, and then the prompt, and then build it. And then you send the request, and wait for the response, and print out the body of the response. Brilliant. That's how you do it. So, of course, you could use JSON. And I also asked it, show me using JSON. But then I had I didn't want to write the classes. I just said, well, won't you also please generate the classes for me for JSON? So it did that. So here you go. You did ChatGPT request with the model, the messages, and it just wrote all this code for me without me having to do very much at all. And then, I had something I was missing here. Where is something missing here? There's something missing because I wanted to show this other code to you. Oh yeah, I actually wanted to run the code. So what I want to do quickly is to run that code. So this is now let me close this, I don't want this open. All right, so the code is here. This is there. So here's the code that was generated by the API. By the prompt. The only thing I need to do is to add my API key. And I've got a little class I wrote called util, which gets me the API key. And then I can say, tell me a joke. I can simply run it, and it should work. So it sends the thing, tell me a joke, and it comes back with the JSON. It says, why couldn't the bicycle find its way home? Okay, because it lost its bearings. I told you this is bad. It's like really, really bad. And I mean, they're all like that. All the jokes are like that. They're just horrible. And it shows you what the model was. It shows you also how many tokens you used. So 11 prompt tokens, 17 completion tokens, total tokens 28. All right. So this is code generated by ChatGPT. And all I did is add the API key, and it runs. And you can put anything here. Tell me a joke. Tell me a funny joke in Greek. Right? Now, I don't know what's going to come out. Maybe it'll do some other silly joke, but it's, it can just do something. Yatito arkudaiki den kani dieta, yatina arketa melistalach. These are bad. These are just bad. So there are better uses for ChatGPT than laughing, okay? All right, so then I wanted to know, how do I translate all the files to all the AsciiDoc files? So it simply wrote this code for me. Well, you walk over the files. This gives you a stream of paths. We then, for each one, okay, some of this I had to add. So the thing that you'll find with ChatGPT is it's going to give you some help, but you still have to use your own brain a bit and fix it a bit. For example, I didn't want to have anything of my locations. I wanted to have files ending with AsciiDoc, but then most of the other code it wrote for me, and then it did the translation for me. So what this does is basically makes a sequential stream, a normal Java 8 stream, and it goes and only searches for certain files with AsciiDoc, and it then gets a string of the file name, and then it does a translation into the new language. Okay, so basically, after I translated Greek to English, I wanted to translate English to other languages like German, Dutch, Danish, Norwegian, whatever. So why would it be a mistake to convert this to a parallel stream? Does anybody know? Yeah, that's a really good option. So the answer was, one answer was the order would be different, and you wouldn't do it in the same order. Actually, the files aren't coming ordered anyway. So it wouldn't be a major problem, but yes, you're right, that it wouldn't be ordered. But there's another reason why you shouldn't do parallel streams on files like this. Actually, network sockets, yes. Correct. So with parallel streams, it's not optimized for waiting on I/O, right? Because no one else can use the parallel streams in the meanwhile, right? So this is not the way to do it. And how long does it take? Well, the models have different speed and accuracy. It also has to have different costs. They've got different limits as to how quickly they're going to rate limit you if you try and use it too quickly. So for example, there's GPT 3.5 Turbo, which is a bit faster than 3.5, but it isn't as accurate. And there's GPT 4.1.106 Preview, which are used for actually translating the book. So what I did was I wanted to really translate a lot of files at the same time. Basically, I want to take the whole book, send it to ChatGPT all at once, the whole 500 pages, and then wait for the answer, okay? And I want to do it with individual requests, with individual threads. But so what you can do in Java nowadays, since Java 21, is you can say, make my HTTP client, and I say my executor is going to be a virtual thread per task executor, which means that the actual communication is happening inside a virtual thread. So I'm no longer blocking up my platform threads, and I'm not constructing too many platform threads either. And all I needed to do was, with the code you saw earlier, I need to wrap it inside a structured task scope, shutdown of failure. And then for each, instead of simply saying translate, which I did before here, I would now say scope.fork, and then translate source file name, common language. And then lastly, scope.join and throw failed. That's it. And by doing that, I'm not doing it with, I've got basically one thread per connection. All right, so last Sunday, we sat down with Mr Manolis, and he was very, very pleased that he's coming to Ioannina. You know, he's very happy. And he asked me, can you do the book in German and French? And I've already done German, so let's try and do French. So what we're going to do is we're going to translate this book into French now. But we're going to start with a semaphore of 1. So the semaphore restricts how many requests we're going to do at one time. So that is it. I set this inside here. So this code is quite ugly, but I blame ChatGPT because they wrote most of the code. Okay. So here's a semaphore of 1. That's the ChatGPT throttle. And all I need to do is to add French to my list of languages. So at the moment I've got German, Dutch, Slovak, Danish, Chinese, and Hungarian. And now we're adding French. So it's going to do, we're going to run that and see how it performs. So hopefully it's going to, oh no, it's wrong file. Let me just run this one here. Shift F10. So now it's doing it into French, but you see it does one file at a time, and you have the latency. You've got to send it from Ioannina to wherever that server is, and then you wait for the answer back. Now, as this is coming in, you notice at the bottom it says like // and then lots of colons, and then the end, or fin, la fin. That's a hack. That's my little hack. Because sometimes I would send a big request, and I'd only get back half the response, half the translation. So I've got like a special end of file marker, end of page marker, that I send in with some text, so it thinks it really needs to translate this, in order to trick ChatGPT to give me that marker back with the translation, or maybe not, and so that I can know when if I have actually translated everything. So it's a hack that I used. I had to do a few hacks like that in order to make this work. So you see it ran for a while, and it told me to translate. Well, we'll quickly go to the French section here. You'll see here's the French, and it's done a few photo blocks, but it's not really that much, because every time I've got to wait for the answer to come back. So let's delete that again. And still staying with 3.5, oh, the other thing I want to show you is the cost. Because I'm actually going to pay, you have to pay to use the API. And I'm going to pay to use it, right? So this is my current credit balance. Let's refresh that. And we're going to translate the whole book with 3.5 and see how much that costs. That's $125.42, all right? So now I'm paying to translate the whole thing into French. And where was let's change this semaphore, just make it 10,000. I don't need that many. Actually, 700 is enough. But I'm going to run it, and we'll see how quickly it does this. Now, unfortunately, what happens quite often is it gets stuck on one or two files. So the API just gets stuck. So I've got like a timeout in there for a few minutes, I think 3-4 minutes. And if it doesn't complete within that time, then I can retry. But what I'm going to do is here, because we don't have much time left, if it stops doing the translation, you can see it's really going fast now. I'm going to simply stop and restart. So we're not going to get the exact time of how long it takes, but you get an idea that it's going actually pretty quickly. Right? Some files are bigger, and the other thing is that because there's limit as to how many tokens you can send at once, at the moment you need to break down the files quite small. So basically, I try to have like less than 4,000 characters per translation. All right, so it's done probably most of them. If I go to AsciiDoc French, and I do find chapters and photo blocks, minus name star.adoc. Oh, the two left, right? The two left. So as I said, sometimes you have one or two get stuck. I'm going to just rerun that quickly to make sure that this works. And yeah, see these two are stuck, and they're probably larger files, so it sometimes just gets stuck, it doesn't respond. It would eventually time out and throw an exception, but I didn't want to wait. So there are 3 characteristics of good programmers. Have you heard that one? Impatience. What are the other 3? Other 2? I forgot the other 2. I think forgetfulness is another one, but I can't remember. But one of them is impatience. Hubris, and there's one more. Hubris, impatience, and I'll think of the other one just now. So it's now translated the entire book into French. We're done. Okay? But it's with ChatGPT 3.5, I think. I'm going to delete the token as soon as we're done with this, so you won't be able to use it anymore. But it's 3.5 Turbo, that's right. So how much did that cost us to translate the entire book, 500 pages? Let me also, whilst we're waiting, just quickly start the PDF. So I'm going to go make language equals French. So whilst that's running, I'm making, now there's some errors, but we're not going to worry about those right now. So this cost me not very much. Okay, it's going to be a bit more. It's going to be like, I think, maybe $50, but it's quite cheap to use ChatGPT 3.5. So I think it's going to be like $50 of cost. All right, and let's see if it's done what it's done here. So, there's some warnings because what it does, sometimes it will go and translate image to whatever the word image means in French. But it's just busy building the PDF now. And it gives warnings if it can't do something, but it actually continues with the work. So I think it's done it. Okay, so now we can say open dist and my Village Chorafakia French PDF. And there's my book in French. Okay, the whole book. All 500 pages translated from English into French. Okay? Now, as I said, this is ChatGPT 3.5. I don't know French. So let's do this with ChatGPT 4 instead of 3.5. And there were some errors, so I'm going to simply move dist French to French 3.5. Sorry, no. That's the wrong place. Move AsciiDoc French to French 3.5. And I'm going to run it again, this time with ChatGPT 4, and just run it again. And it simply goes through the model, just does everything, translates it. Now, we're not going to watch that. It's going to do that in the background. In the meantime, we're going to go back to the slides. So it's really incredible how well it works. I mean, I was really quite surprised, you know. And I mean, I'm using it for everything. Like, I needed an icon for place locations, just to show, click here in order to see the place location, right? And it just generated it for me. I needed to copy symbolic links. I've never done that before. I don't know how to do that. How do you copy symbolic links? I don't know. Because I use them a lot for the directory structure. So I said, well, do it for me. And it just generated this code for me. Let me show you what it looks like. That's in the Magic Code Translator. Is over here, this one here. And I would not normally have this code so big, but unfortunately the image is a bit small. But this is what it did. So it just made a simple file visitor and just wrote this code for me. Walk the file tree, simple file visitor, and if it's symbolic link, then copy it. Done. Very, very easy. Okay. And I posted this in my newsletter, the Java Specialist newsletter. If you're not on it, you really should be on there. You really, really, really should be on there. Look at javaspecialists.eu and sign up. Anyway, so I got an email from a friend of mine. He said to me, he was really cross with me. It seemed cross with me. He said, this is not the right way to do it. There's a much easier way using files.walk, which files.walk does it with a stream. And I tried it out, but I actually found that the files.walk was more complicated than the one that ChatGPT made. So even very experienced programmers might be outfoxed by ChatGPT. So that's kind of scary. This is basically, and the problem with a stream is that you have to worry about checked exceptions. You see here you've got IO exception, and you now have to, what I have to do, I've got to catch that, I've got to wrap it in an unchecked IO exception, and then later on I've got to catch that and unwrap it again. So it's like, do I really want to be doing that? I mean, I think that the file visitor was perfect. It worked really well. And it wrote the code for me. So the other code, well, there's other code too, but I don't need to show it to you. You can just go to ChatGPT and say, write it for me. It's so easy. And it's because really it wrote most of the code. I just sat there and said, write it for me. And it did it. So where are we going next? Unemployment? Hopefully not. Because we still need to direct it, right? Still need to direct it. I find at the moment, what's the generative AI, the code that's being generated is, I would say, better than the average Java programmer. But it's not as good as a good Java programmer yet. But we'll see. A lot of companies are still very reluctant to use generative AI because who owns the ideas you put in there, right? And where is the generated code coming from? We have New York Times suing Microsoft for copyright violations. They're feeling the pinch. Oracle sued Google for copying the Java API for Android. They lost, but you know, you don't want to be sued by someone and then have to defend yourself against I don't know, Google or someone. They have a lot more money than we do. Also, IntelliJ uses OpenAI ChatGPT at the moment, but ChatGPT OpenAI doesn't use our prompts for training. That's what they say. And IntelliJ also will offer on-prem large language models soon, which means that you will be able to have your own private space. There's also companies like Cohere, which give you LLM licenses, so you don't have to expose your data to anybody else. Like big banks will do that. Microsoft Azure also can partition the data better with OpenAI. But so far, I've not seen anything even close to the OpenAI ChatGPT 4. That's really, really great. So do you have any questions? We're into the lunch break, but you know, I'm sure we can manage a couple of minutes if you have any questions too. Absolutely. Thanks very much.
Whenever my beautiful wife watches me coding, which is terrible. My coding is terrible, right? All those colored texts that she sees, her response, those colored texts. Coding makes the developers and the engineers super sexy, from what I'm told, and ChatGPT makes us much sexier, I think. So thank you so much. I'm a big fan, and I have signed up. So I will be learning much more from you, and thank you very much for coming to Ioannina.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heinz.
Thank you very much.
And I have a question, though.
Yes.
Sipuro and coding together. Good mix, bad mix?
There is a curve, right? the beer curve, which you must have heard of this. It's basically your programming ability goes up with like 1 or 2 beers.
Yes.
And after that, it crashes like really far down.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And I'm going to say that the Tsikudya is going to be similar, 2 shots. Within, I'm going to say an hour, you'll be okay. If you exceed that, you're going to go into the downward spiral, and it's going to be much worse. I actually worked for a company like that once.
We should simulate that in ChatGPT and see what it says.
No, it's, I would not recommend.
Thank you so much, Heinz. Thank you. Thanks. All right, folks, lunchtime. And do grab Heinz during lunch, okay? Thank you so much.